We all want our children to grow into emotionally strong, stable, and compassionate adults. But helping them understand their emotions can feel overwhelming. How can parents guide their children toward healthy emotional habits?
We will discuss this and more today on Real Family Talk.
Welcome to Real Family Talk. In today's episode, we're talking about emotional regulation in children, its impact and its importance.
Joining us today is Dr. Bryan Cafferky, Assistant Professor of Counseling and Family Sciences at Loma Linda University's School of Behavioral Health. Dr. Cafferky, thank you for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure to join you.
Today, we are talking about self-regulation in children and how to create rest when they're upset. First, why is it even important to talk about this?
Practicing emotional regulation is one of the most powerful things you can share with your children. This is generational healing. But emotional regulation is also crime prevention, it's suicide prevention, it's violence prevention, it's addiction prevention, because children can learn that conflict does not need to result in harm to other people or themselves. So if you want a better world and a calmer family, practicing emotional regulation is what you should probably do.
So what we're really hearing you say is that this is much more than just for the moment and for what's happening with your child right now. You are basically training that child for the future and for future emotional confrontations or experiences that he or she will have in the future, and to be able to manage it in a way that does not hurt him or her or anybody else.
Correct, that's right. But the parent has to first learn how to regulate themselves. And then when they can be calm, they can share that calmness with their children.
That's a very important point because, of course, children learn not just from formal education, but from modeling. But I want to go into a mainstream belief that children should know how to regulate their emotions and calm themselves down. What's your take on that? Is that true?
Good question. So when children leave the womb, do they automatically know how to ride a bike? Of course not. There's many steps between when they're growing up to they're actually physically capable of riding a bike. So sometimes we hold children to unrealistic expectations. We expect them to miraculously know how to regulate their big emotions, even when someone else is upsetting them. So this overwhelmingness and this dysregulation is biologically normal and linked to this fight, flight, or freeze response. Because the truth is, kids can only learn how to regulate the emotions that they are allowed to feel. So if we don't allow our children to express these emotions, then we rob them of the opportunity to learn how to regulate them.
So basically what I'm hearing you say is that learning how to self-regulate is like learning how to do life. And you don't expect a 2-year-old to know how to make a bed and do it perfectly. You don't expect a 2 or 3-year-old to be able to drive a car or to cook a meal or what have you. So it's pretty much the same. You know,
they have to be taught.
It's a developmental process, and there has to be a level of intentionality on the part of a parent who is, in fact, the responsible person in the room to ensure that children are, in fact, developing at a pace that will bode well for them in the future.
That's correct. That's correct. And biologically speaking, when children get dysregulated, what's happening is their emotional reaction is hijacking their thinking brain.
Yeah.
Right. So, in other words, when we see children having emotional outbreaks, and we may think that they're misbehaving, tell us a little bit more about why that's a misconception and this whole notion of the hijack of their brain.
Right. When children have big emotions and their nervous system is overwhelmed, it's not the child throwing the tantrum, rather the tantrum is throwing the child. So when children are dysregulated and they're having this tantrum, it's not misbehavior, this is communication. And they're sharing with us that they are overwhelmed. They're out of control. Help me. because the intensity of their emotions is outstripping their ability to manage these emotions. And they have not yet developed the skill set to manage those big feelings.
Well, you know what? I want to repeat that. When you say it's not the child throwing a tantrum, it's a tantrum throwing the child. That's just such a profound way of looking at it and so important for us to understand. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about that, because does personality fit into this? Does temperament of the child? Is it environment? Is it developmental? You know, what is happening? I mean, you don't know but in general, to a child when they do break down and throw a tantrum. What else is happening? And we know that the brain is doing something, but how do you express that for parents, to help parents?
It could be a combination of several factors, like you mentioned. So maybe the environment is overstimulating, or when the child gets upset and they throw this tantrum, it may not be the immediate thing that caused the tantrum. It could be something that happened several hours ago or the previous day. And it's this buildup of stress and upsettedness that eventually leads to the child's autonomic nervous system becoming overwhelmed. So the children just can't handle what's happening. And so they go into this natural biological response and they're out of control, right? We say that children are out of control. What's really happening is their autonomic nervous system is going into this fight, flight, freeze, or befriend response. And so children aren't choosing to have this meltdown. They're not choosing to have this tantrum. Instead, they're seeking for help. They're seeking support and help from the parents.
So basically, it's a lot like learning to drive. And I remember learning to drive many years ago as a teenager, and perhaps driving the car a lot faster than you have managed to control the car. That you've gotten used to, in fact, steering a car that's going that fast. So in essence, that's why you say that the tantrum is having the child.
It's throwing the child. Yeah. Yeah. And I think also what I like about this, because I think for many parents, they just don't understand what's happening with the child. And you said something so critical in that it's a buildup. Like this could have been from the day before, or it could have been from earlier in the day, and now they're just so flooded. The only way they can express this, because it's not like they can really sit down and have a conversation with you if it's a young child that doesn't necessarily have language, is to throw a tantrum, and that parents need to understand that, and they need to remain calm. I think that's the critical part here.
The thing about it
is parents self-regulating.
As I'm listening to you speak, is that many times I see parents thinking that their child is just misbehaving. You're being a bad child. You're being a rude child.
And you're doing it to me.
And you're doing it to me, and you're embarrassing me. So, I'm going to pinch you, or I'm going to yell at you, or what have you. And what the child needs is for the parent to be calm and to try to understand what's happening and to be the adult in the room.
Yes, and when parents are acting in that manner, they're feeling embarrassed, or they feel like they need to do something to force the child to calm down. It's the parents that are actually catching their child's anxiety.
It's time for us to take a short break, but when we return, we'll continue talking with Dr. Bryan Cafferky about helping children create rest when they're upset. Stay with us.
Today on Real Family Talk, we are talking with Assistant Professor of Counseling and Family Sciences at Loma Linda University, Dr. Bryan Cafferky, on the importance of helping children regulate their emotions during moments of distress.
So we've talked about the importance of discussing this topic and debunk the idea that children automatically know how to calm themselves down. Let's take some time to talk about what you call counterintuitive truths. What is a counterintuitive truth?
Counterintuitive truths are something that parents believe to be the case, but actually what they're doing might be making the situation worse.
Okay, so for instance?
Timeout. A lot of parents love using timeout. And I think timeout is great, a great strategy for the parents. Timeout is a great way to help the parents regulate themselves. A brief parental timeout, just to catch my breath, to calm down my nervous system. Then I can take that calmness and share it with the child. Because we know that when parents are dysregulated, they cannot calm down a dysregulated child.
Wow.
The reality, though, is that most times when a parent puts a child on timeout, they're doing so for the child. They don't realize that they're doing it for themselves. So this is a novel concept, and I'm hoping that our viewing audience is in fact tuning in and paying careful attention to that. I would love for you to elucidate just a little bit more on that whole notion of timeout and how it can help parents.
How does it work, though? Because you have this child that's acting out, and then you're dysregulated as a parent, and you need a timeout. I love that. I mean, that's brilliant. How does a parent take a timeout? Just leave the kid in the middle of the floor, kicking and screaming?
If the child is safe and in a safe place and they're not going to hurt themselves or other people, yes, the parent's allowed to walk out of the room or do some push-ups or turn away and take a deep breath, get a different sensory palette, look at something else just to calm themselves down. Because most parents, when they're dysregulated, aren't doing a good job parenting.
And then they're out of control. I often actually used to do that with our kids, especially our strong-willed child. And it's like, okay, if you need to kick this door for a little bit, as long as you're not going to hurt yourself. I knew that I needed to just lower my blood pressure and get some oxygen. But it's hard for parents, especially if this is happening in a public place, if it's church or the playground. It becomes a very difficult prospect for parents. So again, is there something real quickly that a parent could do in a quick moment, like the grocery store? Like, should you just pick the child up and hold them?
You can pick the child up and hold them, but your responsibility is try and remain calm even when the child is dysregulated. But if the parent is dysregulated, the mirror neurons we experience with the child, there's going to be this natural reverberation within this emotional field. And we might be catching their anxiety, and then the child is catching our anxiety, and nobody is calming down. So we might need to take a little time out just to calm ourselves down so that we can offer calmness to the child.
Okay, we get it.
So when a child gets upset, the automatic reaction for many parents is immediately to help them calm down. But back to what you're talking about. Be aware of the fact that you're the one that needs to be calmed down so that you can, in fact, model being calm to your child. Yes?
That's right. And I don't actually recommend doing timeout for the children as a primary consequence for them having big feelings. Instead, I recommend that parents use time in with the children. Because when children experience timeout, they are removed from community. They are removed from their caregiver, and they experience shame and isolation just because they have these big feelings. And so when children are put on timeout, they learn emotional suppression, not emotional regulation. They learn that my big feelings are bad because my big feelings make love disappear. Instead, parents should offer time in with the children, right? It's the parent's job to remain calm even when the child is dysregulated. So their responsibility is not to calm down their child. The parent's responsibility is to remain calm. So in this time in with the child, the parents are co-regulating with the child. They are offering their calmness, their safety, their presence, and it's this calmness that helps the child calm down, because the children's template for understanding how to handle big emotions is looking at how the parents are dealing with these big emotions. A parent's job is not to calm down their child. A parent's job is to remain regulated themselves and continue to offer that calmness even though the child is still dysregulated. During this time in, a calm parent can co-regulate with the child. So a parent's calm nervous system becomes the child's template for learning how to regulate their own emotions. And the children will learn eventually that their own big feelings aren't too big for the parent. And if they're not too big for the parent, maybe the child will learn they will eventually not be too big for me either.
What I love about what you're saying is that basically you are outlining for parents the fact that they need to understand better what's happening with their child. And by that I mean, sending them to timeout is banishing them and helping them to feel
and
like
shaming them and
shaming.
isolating them.
Something
as
is
he
wrong
said.
with me, so I need to not be a part of present company.
And I don't belong.
No, I don't belong.
I don't belong here.
I'm doing something wrong. And instead, what I'm hearing you say is the parent needs to convey to the child that they're fine, and we're fine
that
together.
emotions are fine.
Yes.
So, there are just so many issues that are arising. We're going to have a whole nother segment on this. But so many parents have never learned how to self-regulate. Yeah. And you used another word. You said self-regulation and also self-suppression. Can you just describe that a little bit? Because sometimes I think when people hear the word self-regulate, they think that it means, well, you're asking me to suppress my emotions. And why do we have that idea in our society?
So there are family rules and different cultural and societal rules about what emotions are acceptable and not acceptable to express in public. And so when there are big emotions that we get overwhelmed with as a parent, we often want to get rid of the stimuli that is activating that. And sometimes when our children have big emotions, we want to get rid of the children so we can feel calmer. It's these same feelings that we were emotionally taught or societally taught how to suppress ourselves. So if we can't learn how to regulate our own big emotions, our children are not going to have an opportunity to learn how to regulate their own emotions. So when parents are doing time in with the child, remaining calm is the intervention, right? It's showing the children that you're a good kid just having a hard time, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Excellent. One last question before we go to break. Are there any differences in finding emotional regulation when it comes to neurodivergent children?
Yes, neurodivergent children might need fewer words, or they might need more space, or maybe they need different pacing compared to neurotypical children. So the co-regulation principles stay the same. The parent has responsibility to remain calm and offer that calmness to the child, but the approach might change. Some children need more closeness, or they might need more space first and then closeness. Or some children might need to discharge excess energy in their body before they can find a way to calm down. So even asking the children, do you want comfort or do you want space right now, provides them opportunity to express what they think they need to calm down in the moment.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cafferky. When we return, we will talk more about practical strategies for creating emotional regulation. Stay with us. We're back on Real Family Talk with Dr. Bryan Cafferky. We've spent some time today discussing the importance of helping children regulate versus letting them continue to live with dysregulation. So, Dr. Cafferky, we recognize that children have big emotions. Is this a normal sign of development or is it a sign of poor discipline?
This is a normal sign of development. And when parents are trying to offer calmness to their children, when they share that calmness, there's a chance that children might appear even more dysregulated. And that's because they feel safe enough to express their big emotions. I think the simplest way to frame this is to see this process as developmentally and biologically normal. It's normal for children to have big feelings and for those big feelings to outstrip their current ability to regulate. Because when God created us with our biology and our autonomic nervous system, He set it up in such a way that we're able to respond to threats or things that seem unfair. So children's amygdala, their emotional alarm system, sends them into this fight, flight, freeze, or befriend response. This is a natural biological response to situations that don't seem right for them. But the child's prefrontal cortex, the part of their brain that helps them solve problems and be artistic and creative and do math, that goes offline. And so they're not actually able to access their thinking brain. And their thinking brain is still under construction when they're children. So depending on the age of the child, they may not yet have the hardware or the opportunity to practice this emotional regulation, which is why they need the parent's calmness to help them calm down.
That makes a lot of sense. You also have a seminar where you share why parents can help, or how parents can help children who are dysregulated to calm their autonomic nervous system. You said a little bit about the autonomic nervous system, and perhaps you can say a little bit more about the role it plays in emotional regulation.
So when something doesn't seem fair or right, children will react to that as a potential threat. And so we need the calmness to help them calm down. And one of the best ways to do that is using the 5 senses that God gave us. One of my favorite things to do with children is offer them a sensory reset, where I ask them to notice 5 things they can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. In fact, I just did this with my daughter yesterday. Sometimes kids need to discharge excess energy. They might need to stomp it out or say things like, "I'm so mad." So I'll join them in the jumping. Other times I ask them to help me blow out 5 candles, each of my fingers, or I have them do a mountain climbing breathing where they, we climb up and down my fingers to help them regulate their autonomic nervous system. Another thing I like to do is what I call sports casting, where I notice what's happening and I provide commentary. It might sound like this. "Oh, you seem upset. Oh, because your favorite Troy is missing. It makes sense you feel sad." Or, "I see tears running down your cheeks. And that's because you want to play with a friend, but it's raining outside. That must be so difficult." And in doing so, I'm helping the child connect their behavior with their big feelings inside. And then we transition to these sensory activities.
Oh, that's excellent. What would you say healthy parenting looks like in terms of helping children regulate and creating healthy boundaries?
I think one of the big things is recognizing that first, every emotion is okay, but not every behavior is. You're allowed to feel these big feelings, but you're not allowed to hurt yourself or other people or be disruptive. You're allowed to discharge these big emotions, but you can't be hurting anybody. The second thing is repetition. Parents need to continue to offer this calmness to provide more and more opportunities for the child to regulate. Because the less and less we provide our child an opportunity to regulate, we are robbing them of a chance to develop mastery over this.
Thanks so much for sharing what you've just shared. It's been invaluable, and it's just incredibly practical. A little hard to do, but it makes sense. And I think it's many of us would have to unlearn some behaviors, right? So before you go, can you share some resources for parents looking for more assistance in helping their children learn emotional regulation?
That feels a little bit like asking me for tips and tricks for how to ride a bike. So my best recommendation is to honestly just get on that bike and practice riding. Because if parents are able to calm themselves down, then they're able to offer that calmness to their children. And what happens is correction without the connection can feel like rejection for those children. So we need to slow down, calm ourselves down, connect with our child. Then we have an opportunity for growth.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Cafferky. May God continue to bless you in your ministry.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you today.
Psalm 94:19 reminds us, "When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy." God understands every emotion we experience, and He promises to bring us peace and joy as we draw close to Him.
Thank you for watching Real Family Talk. Join us again when we'll share more about strengthening families and inspiring hope. See you next time.